say this tale was just another frontier tall talk, a way to sell papers and scare greenhorn settlers. But others believe something ancient lurked in the heart of the Okefenokee, a remnant of a forgotten race, watching, waiting. The night air around the Okefenokee swamp is thick, still, and heavy, the kind of silence where even the frogs don't dare croak. Picture it, winter of 1828 on the Georgia-Florida border, a place as wild as it was unforgiving. Back then, the swamp stretched endlessly, a tangled mass of black water, cypress knees, and ghostly mist that swallowed sound and light alike. A trapper named Elias Crenshaw stumbled across them first. Great impressions in the mud, 18 inches long, sunk deep, as if some enormous beast had walked on two legs. Soon enough, others found them too. By late December, Elias, along with 9 seasoned hunters, rifles, powder, and dogs in tow, formed a party to find whatever was lurking out there. Among them were brothers Matthew and Jonah Cooper, who had hunted panthers and gators their whole lives. Jonah spat his tobacco into the water and said,
"Boys, if it bleeds, it dies. Ain't no swamp boogeyman that'll scare me."
The rest laughed, a moment they would soon regret. 3 days in, the swamp closed around them like a coffin. The mist hung low, their boots sank into black mud, strange cries echoed from unseen places. That night, while the hunters rested on a small dry hillock, something watched them. Matthew swore he heard heavy breathing. Jonah claimed he saw 2 glowing eyes across the firelight, higher than any man's head. But when they raised their rifles, the swamp went quiet again. On the 4th evening, with fading light, it happened. As the hunters moved through a clearing, the dogs stopped dead, whining and pulling back on their leads. Then came a sound like a tree snapping in half. A giant, taller than any man they'd ever seen, 13 feet if it was an inch, covered head to toe in dark, matted hair. Its chest was broad as a barrel, its arms swung low like a great ape, and its eyes burned like hot coals. Before anyone could aim, the beast charged. The first shot rang out, then another. Lead balls slammed into its chest, but it didn't even slow down. With an unworldly roar, it shook the trees. The creature grabbed Thomas Redding, the youngest of the group, and twisted his head clean around. One man screamed. Another fired point blank into the monster's face, but it only seemed to make it madder. They fought for their lives. Powder smoke choked the air. The screams of men mixed with the guttural bellows of the beast. Bleeding from half a dozen gunshot wounds, the giant finally stumbled, gave one last rumbling howl, and crashed to the ground, shaking the earth beneath it. By the time it was over, 5 men lay dead, their bodies mangled and torn, necks twisted at impossible angles, including brothers Matthew and Jonah Cooper. Elijah and the remaining shaken men gathered around, breathing hard, hearts pounding like war drums. Even on the ground, the thing was massive, 13 feet from crown to heel. Its hands were broad as shovels, nails thick as knives. Whatever it wasn't a man, but it wasn't exactly a beast either. Elias whispered, voice trembling.
"God help us if there's more than one."
They fled in silence, abandoning the dead, friend and monster alike. When they returned, bloodied and shaken, they told the story of a beast. The thing was no man. No one believed them until they showed the footprints. The tale spread fast. By spring 1829, the Okefenokee wild man had become legend. Yet when search parties returned to the swamp, the bodies were gone. No blood, no bones, not even a bullet casing. Just endless reeds, black water, and the creeping sense that something was watching. You see, the swamp kept its secret. Till this day, on moonless nights, when the wind dies and the mist clings low, some say you can hear branches cracking where no one walks. You feel eyes that never blink. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it breathing. Still out there, waiting. Deep in the Appalachian hollers, where the trees crowd close and the dark feels alive, there lingers a tale from the Cumberland Gap, a terror born in the late 1800s. There was a man named Elijah Bruner, hard-working settler, tough as the oak his cabin was built from. He and his wife Martha carved out a life for themselves and their 2 children deep in the Gap, away from prying eyes and the safety of town. One autumn night, while the fire still flickered in the hearth, Elijah heard a sound drifting through the trees, an unsettling shriek, not the cry of a panther, not the scream of a bobcat, but something sharper, stranger, something that carried a kind of malice in it. At first, he shrugged it off, but before long, the walls of that little cabin shuddered. Something was slamming into them, hard. The roof groaned as footsteps pattered across it, claws scratching at the shingles. The children screamed, Martha clutched them tight, and Elijah stormed out with his rifle. And in a heartbeat of dread, there they were, staring back at him. Not men, not animals. 3 creatures leapt from the roof into the dark, about 4 feet tall, covered in coarse black hair, long, crooked limbs, eyes that glowed like lantern embers in the night, and they moved, not like wolves or bears, but in jerking, bounding hops, vanishing into the tree line with a chorus of shrieks. The muzzle flashbang lit the cabin yard for an instant, just long enough for Elijah to see the creatures scatter into the woods, wailing as they vanished. The next night they came again, and this time they wanted blood. The Bruners' goats were slaughtered, a mule left limping and torn. Elijah swore he hit one of the beasts square with a shot. It shrieked, stumbled, but then bounded off as if the bullet had never touched it. No blood, no trail, nothing. And they kept coming. For a week, the family endured the siege. Each night, the pounding, the scratching at the shutters, the roof alive with scampering feet. By dawn, they'd be gone. But the silence was worse, because it meant they'd be back come sundown. Finally, Elijah had enough. He gathered Martha and the children, and by lantern light they fled through the woods to the safety of town. They never returned to that cabin. When the men of the township went back to search, they found the pens torn open, the earth scarred by strange 3-tooth tracks, but no bodies, no blood, no sign of the Bruners' tormentors. But I'll tell you this, if you camp too deep in the Cumberland Gap and you hear shrieking in the trees, best stoke that fire high and keep your rifle close. Elijah and his family weren't the first to hear those creatures, and they won't be the last. You see, Appalachia is beautiful by day, but at night, they belong to something else. To this day, some say those were the devil monkeys cryptid said to haunt the mountains. Others whisper they were escaped sideshow apes, or maybe even something darker, born from the hills themselves.